Hi. I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about chapters 2 and 3 because you probably noticed already, similar to a lot of other textbooks, chapter 1, it's easing you into discussing what does it mean to be a teacher, especially in the field of early childhood. Chapters 2 and 3 start getting into a lot of information. There's just a lot there. So chapter 2 talks a lot about different types of programs when it comes to early childhood. A few things that I wanted to point out for you. It mentioned charter schools and also children that are homeschooled and what that looks like at different ages. I can tell you in Colorado, we definitely, in comparison to most states, have more children that are homeschooled throughout their schooling and or go to charter schools. So charter schools, again, they're free public education, but they have a bit more autonomy. They write a charter, which is a kind of a plan with typically a district, and that can get approved. And then they get public funds to run things a bit differently. So they might choose a different curriculum than the rest of a district that they're in. They have a different board that they address versus whatever board is in charge at different large districts. They are still required to show their growth and their progress and do those state-mandated assessments once they're into kindergarten and beyond. So that's a bit about charters. I've worked a lot in charters as a teacher and as an administrator. Right now I'm working with, as a new position, I'm working in DPS looking at almost 60 different charter schools that are over there. So it gets fascinating. There's all different types of models, children that might be more interested in kind of, or the families that might be interested in back to the basics or more exploratory learning or more arts-based learning or science. They have all these different models, girls only, boys only, and so on and so forth. So those are things that typically we're looking at when it comes to early childhood, kindergarten and beyond, but some charters also have preschool and later. And different types of childcare settings. So that could be in-home, that could also be at centers, that could also be as a part of a more traditional, larger school with older students as well. I did want to make one note because I've seen a lot of individuals get concerned or upset or worked up at times. Someone will throw out the word daycare, right? Daycare sounds a little bit like babysitting versus being truly an early childhood or teaching professional and being at a school or in childcare. I think part of it is just semantics, and it's the type of words that people may choose based on how long they've been in the field, but something that you may want to consider when you're talking about where you work with children. The other thing that I've heard a lot of people mention a lot, especially when we're talking about early childhood, is if it's a play-based school or an academics-based school. And really, we're looking at what's best for children's development, and that goes back to DAP, or developmentally appropriate practice. So probably a combination of the two. What do they mean by play-based and what do they mean by academics? Is there still some free time in either instance for children to truly explore? Is it hands-on, or are they treating them a bit more like they're, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old when they're 4 and they're doing a lot of worksheets and extended reading and sitting times? I can tell you that sometimes when we haven't been as developmentally appropriate and children have been required to sit a lot more for extended periods of time and start reading and writing earlier, that we have seen an increase in eye struggles for young children, just because they're not ready. Their bodies are not ready for that extended time there. So that's a bit more on chapter 2. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Chapter 3 goes into many, many names of many famous theorists and psychologists and educators, and before philosophers over the past several hundred years. What I'd really like you to, it's nice to see where that's coming from, and to remember that whatever Maria Montessori or Jean Piaget or these people came up with, they didn't come up with these ideas out of a vacuum. You can trace back over hundreds of years before and see where some of these ideas first originated. And your text does a good job of highlighting where some of those ideas came from. And of course, even if you go back 2,000 years, those ideas didn't come out of a vacuum either. So just remembering that whenever we hear about a new way of seeing things, that those ideas came around at times before as well, but then I think when society was ready for them to move forward and become a bigger mainstream thought or idea, we went forward with it. So some of the things that are discussed include the different types of early childhood models. And I can tell you that one of the main things that I'd love for you to get out of this class is to remember 4 major models when it comes to early childhood. And that is an assignment that you have as well. It's not coming until mid-November, but it's a big assignment. It's worth a good amount of points. And it's called program comparison assignment. So when you're looking at this chapter, the 4 that are discussed that you're going to be reflecting back on again later are Reggio Emilia, which is a place in Italy, and you can read more about that, but where that came out of after World War II, and really the type of model that created a system where the child and the parents and the community work together, and it's very arts-based, and it's very revolutionary is kind of part of the word I'm looking for, but something very unique and different to help the world that came out a bit after World War II. The other 2 are a little over 100 years old, or about 100 years old. One is Maria Montessori's model, and she developed some methods of teaching children over 100 years ago now. And we know her schools, out of all the different types of early childhood philosophies or models that people know, probably Montessori is the main one. However, a lot of times we don't know that much. So please take a moment to watch the videos that I have included for this week to learn more about Montessori also. Also know that you want to check. So some people say, oh, I love Montessori, or oh, I hate Montessori. You really want to find out, were they ever at a school that was truly Montessori? Because that's a person's last name, so anyone can say that they're a Montessori school. So you can ask, did the teachers get their additional training in Montessori methods? Pardon my dog barking in the background. Did they, one moment here. Well, I'm going to keep going. Did they get that certification? Are they AMS or AMI certified? And find out more about the actual program, because, excuse me, anyone can call themselves Montessori. That said, after Montessori, we also have Waldorf. And Waldorf actually came from a man by the name of Steiner, and he created them in Germany at the Waldorf Astoria buildings, and created these systems for children as well. And that was about 100 years ago also. So your text does a nice job of giving a brief description of each of them, and then a little bit of a comparison of all of them. You're going to go deeper, because I really want you to know those names when you leave, along with 4th, last but certainly not least, is Head Start, which has been a program that has been around now for over 50 years and has been created to try to help children and outreach to families that might be at a disadvantage due to poverty and other family circumstances similar to that. They've done a lot to connect family and community and education and really create a partnership there. So what you're going to have to do eventually is one of 2 things. It's called program comparison, and out of the 4, so Reggio Emilia, Waldorf, Montessori, and Head Start, you're going to pick 2. And I would like you to either go for 1 hour to two different places and make notes, and there's a brief, you'll see the descriptions if you go into the syllabus and FAQ part of our class. You can read what you would do there, but it's a brief sheet that you fill out, and you're just looking at the teacher and the philosophy and the children involved and so on. And you'll turn that in. You can turn that in along with some type of brochure. And that's great, because one of the best ways not only to know something is certainly to see it and experience it yourself. You want to do that during a time when they're not napping or at lunch. So find a more regular time of the day. And the other option, if you cannot do that, because you'd have to find 2 hours at some point during the semester before mid-November to do that, would be to write a more traditional paper where you'd find some online books, articles, and resources, and write a 5-page paper comparing and contrasting 2 different models again. So again, I wanted to give you a heads up on that, but those 4 models I think are so very important. And I'll tell you a brief story that is related to myself. So years ago, but I was already a director and a principal, and I had been in early childhood for a long time, and I met a leader in the field, and she's a really amazing woman. And she came to talk to me and knew a bit of my background, and she said, can you imagine that I have met people and they dare call themselves early childhood teachers, and they've never even heard of Reggio Emilia. Now at this point I was a little embarrassed and didn't want to give up the fact that I, in fact, did not know. So I said, no. Wow. Amazing. And of course, I went home and then I dove into the books and the online resources and figured out what the heck Reggio Emilia was. So it would be wonderful for you, not only so you're not embarrassed, but more importantly, those 4 models show so much about what to do to create and celebrate the whole child, to be developmentally appropriate, to be aesthetically pleasing, a real beautiful environment, to be individualized for children, to really partner truly with the families in the community. So there's so many neat things you could learn from those models and take into a home childcare setting or in a center or in your own type of model, or maybe after you visit one, you get the idea that, wow, I would love to work at a Reggio Emilia school, or I'd love to work at a Waldorf. That's what I would like for you. And it's a great way to make some new contacts. So wanted to give you the heads up on that. I hope you enjoy chapters 2 and 3. They're heavy hitters and also important. And I look forward to continuing our discussions this week. Thank you.